A wealthy farmer saved abandoned triplets on a country road during a storm. Years later, he could hardly believe it when a boat docked at the lake outside his home. The wind howled through the air like a ghostly lament, while lightning tore across the night sky, briefly illuminating the deserted country road. Jack Miller gripped the steering wheel of his luxury pickup truck, his knuckles white with tension. His eyes, usually calm and calculating, were now wide with concern, struggling to see through the curtain of rain pounding against the windshield. A sudden flash revealed something at the side of the road. Jack slammed on the brakes, heart racing. It couldn't be. 3 small figures, no bigger than rag dolls, were huddled under a twisted tree. Jack blinked in disbelief. When another bolt of lightning lit up the scene, he was sure they were children. Without a second thought, Jack jumped out of the truck, the icy rain soaking through his tailored suit in seconds. He approached them cautiously, afraid he might startle them. "Hey," he called softly, having to raise his voice to be heard over the storm. "It's okay. I'm here to help." 3 pairs of wide eyes stared at him, shining with fear and hope. Jack felt a lump in his throat. They were girls, identical as drops of water, no more than 4 years old. Their blonde hair clung to their pale faces, and their lips trembled from the cold. Jack crouched, ignoring the mud staining his $1,000 pants. "Are you hurt?" he asked, quickly looking them over. One of the girls, the one in the middle, shook her head no. The other 2 clung to her as if seeking protection. "Where are your parents?" Jack asked, glancing around. There was no sign of another car, no house in sight. The girls stayed silent, only trembling. Jack noticed then that they were barefoot, their little feet sinking into the mud. His heart tightened. A deafening thunderclap roared above them, making the girls shrink back and let out a muffled scream. Jack made his decision right then. "Come on," he said, opening his arms. "I'll take you somewhere safe." For a moment, the girls hesitated, exchanging looks as though conversing silently. Then, to Jack's surprise, the middle girl nodded and took a step forward. Gently, Jack gathered all 3 in his arms. They were as light as feathers, and he could feel their tiny bodies shaking against his chest. He ran back to the truck, shielding them as best he could from the relentless rain. Once inside, Jack blasted the heat. The girls crowded together in the passenger seat, watching him with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Jack reached into the back seat for a wool blanket and wrapped it around them carefully. "It's all right now," he muttered, more to himself than to them. "So you're safe?" As he drove, Jack couldn't help sneaking glances at his small passengers. Who were they? How did they end up on that deserted road, in the middle of a storm? And where on earth were their parents? The road wound through the darkness, the headlights illuminating the path ahead. Jack knew he should take them straight to the authorities, but something inside him rebelled against that idea. These children needed immediate care, hot food, dry clothes. He decided he would take them to his estate first. He could call the authorities from there. When the imposing gates of his property came into view, Jack felt a momentary relief. The mansion's light shone warmly through the rain like a beacon in the storm. He parked by the main entrance and turned to the girls. They watched him closely, their big eyes reflecting the glow of the dashboard. "We're here," Jack said gently. "Let's go inside and get dried off, okay?" To his surprise, the middle girl, who seemed to be the trio's silent spokesperson, held out her arms to him. Jack picked her up carefully, and the other 2 followed, clinging to him like tiny koalas. Racing through the rain to the front door, Jack felt the weight of the 3 children in his arms, but also something else, a sudden, overwhelming responsibility. Whoever these girls were, whatever their story might be, they depended on him now. The door opened before he could reach for the handle. Susan, his trusted housekeeper, stood there, eyes wide in astonishment. "Mr. Miller, what?" she began, but Jack cut her off with a look. "Later, Susan. Right now we need towels, dry clothes, and something warm to eat." Susan nodded, years of loyal service allowing her to regain her composure quickly. She disappeared into the house, efficient as ever. Jack carried the girls into the living room, his steps echoing on the marble floor. He set them gently on the leather sofa, noting how tiny and fragile they looked against the luxurious furniture. Susan returned with a stack of fluffy towels and a selection of her own t-shirts, which would serve as makeshift nightgowns for the girls. "Hot chocolate will be ready in a few minutes," she said, helping Jack dry and dress the children. The girls let themselves be cared for quietly, their eyes wandering around the lavish living room. Jack noticed how they seemed to move in unison, as though they were one entity in three bodies. Once they were dry and warm, wrapped in soft blankets on the couch, Susan brought in a tray with steaming mugs of hot chocolate and a plate of cookies. The girls stared at the food with wide eyes but made no move to take any. "It's okay," Jack encouraged, picking up a cookie and taking a bite. "You can eat." As if given permission, the three dove into the snacks, devouring the cookies and drinking the hot chocolate with a hunger that broke Jack's heart. How long had it been since their last meal? As he watched them, Jack felt a surge of protectiveness well up inside him. Whoever had abandoned these children deserved punishment, and he would do anything to ensure that happened. But first, he needed to take care of them. "Susan," he called softly, not wanting to disturb the girls who were now dozing full and warm. "Call Dr. Harris. Ask him to come right away. And to prepare the guest rooms." Susan raised an eyebrow but did not question him. "Yes, sir, and what about the authorities?" Jack hesitated, looking at the three sleeping figures on the couch. Something in him recoiled at the thought of handing them over to the system, at least not yet. Not until he was sure they would be safe. "Tomorrow," he decided. "We'll deal with it tomorrow." As Susan left to carry out his orders, Jack settled into a nearby armchair, his eyes never leaving the children. The storm still raged outside, but inside, for this moment, there was peace. Jack didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he was certain of one thing: the life he knew had changed forever on that stormy night. And somehow, he knew it was a change he'd been waiting for without even realizing it. Morning light seeped through the silk curtains, gently illuminating the guest room where the three girls were fast asleep. Jack paused in the doorway, watching their small forms curled up under Egyptian cotton sheets. The contrast between the luxury of the setting and the condition in which he had found them the night before was striking. Susan appeared quietly at his side, her usually impassive expression tinged with concern. "They slept through the night, Mr. Miller," she whispered. "Dr. Harris will be here in an hour." Jack nodded, grateful for his housekeeper's efficiency. He had barely slept, his mind a whirlwind of unanswered questions. Who were these children? How did they end up on that road? And what on earth was he going to do next? A subtle movement in the bed caught his attention. One of the girls, Emily, Olivia, Sophia. He still didn't know their names, opened her eyes, blinking in confusion at the unfamiliar room. For a moment, panic flashed across her face, but then she saw Jack and seemed to calm slightly. "Good morning," Jack said softly, stepping into the room. "Did you sleep well?" The girl nodded timidly, her eyes never leaving his. The other two began to stir, waking up in almost perfect sync. Susan entered, carrying a tray laden with breakfast, pancakes, fresh fruit, and orange juice. The sweet aroma made the girls' stomachs growl audibly. "You must be hungry," Jack smiled, helping them sit up. "Let's have something to eat, and then the doctor will come by to check on you, okay?" The girls ate with gusto, but in silence. Jack noticed how they seemed to communicate through glances and subtle gestures, as though sharing a secret language. It was fascinating and a bit unsettling. While the children ate, Jack stepped into the hallway to take out his phone. His fingers hovered over the keypad for a moment before he dialed a familiar number. "Mike, it's Jack Miller. I need your help with a delicate matter." On the other end of the line, Detective Mike Anderson listened intently as Jack explained the situation in a low voice. The two were old acquaintances. Mike had helped Jack with some business-related issues in the past. "Three girls, on the road? Jesus, Jack, this is serious," Mike said, his voice grave. "You should have called the police immediately." I know, Jack sighed, running a hand through his hair. "But something's not right here, Mike. I need you to investigate discreetly before we involve the authorities." There was a pause on the other end. "All right," Mike finally agreed. "I'll start digging. But Jack, if we find anything illegal, then we'll do the right thing. Jack finished. Thanks, Mike. Ending the call, Jack returned to the room. Dr. Harris had arrived and was gently examining the girls, who seemed nervous but cooperative. Well, physically they're fine, the doctor reported after completing his exam. A bit malnourished and with a few minor bruises, but nothing serious. Mentally, however, he hesitated, throwing a meaningful look at Jack. Jack understood. Whatever trauma these children had gone through wouldn't be healed overnight. Thank you, Doctor, Jack said, walking him to the door. Please keep this quiet for now. After the doctor left, Jack turned his attention back to the girls. They watched him intently, as if waiting for instructions. Well, he said, trying to sound cheerful, how about a tour of the ranch? Would you like to see the horses? The girls' eyes lit up with the first real sign of excitement Jack had seen. He smiled, feeling an unexpected wave of affection. Susan helped dress them in clothes she had hastily purchased in town, jeans, colorful t-shirts, and comfortable sneakers. Seeing the three in normal clothes rather than last night's soaked rags made Jack realize how utterly adorable they were. As they walked through the extensive gardens of the estate, Jack watched the girls with growing fascination. They moved in perfect sync, turning their heads simultaneously to watch a bird or a particularly pretty flower. Occasionally, they exchanged looks that seemed to hold entire conversations. At the stable, the girls were delighted by the horses. Jack helped them pet the muzzle of his favorite stallion, Thunderbolt. To his surprise, the usually temperamental horse was gentle and patient with the children. Back at the mansion, Jack found himself facing a dilemma. What to do next? Part of him wanted to keep the girls there, protected and safe, but he knew he couldn't simply erase 3 children from the map. His phone vibrated. A message from Mike. I found something. Need to see you in person. Urgent. A chill ran down Jack's spine. What had Mike discovered? Glancing at the girls, who were now quietly playing with some toys Susan had provided, Jack made a silent promise. No matter what happened, he would protect them. Somehow, in less than 24 hours, these 3 little strangers had become the most important thing in his life. Susan, he called quietly, I'll need to step out for a few hours. Please take good care of them. As he headed to his car, Jack cast one last look back at the mansion. The girls were at the window, watching him leave. Their identical gazes followed him, filled with wisdom beyond their years. Jack swallowed hard, trying to ignore the knot in his chest. Something told him that whatever Mike had found out would change everything. Last night's storm had brought more than just 3 lost orphans. It had brought a mystery, a challenge, and perhaps a new purpose for his life. With one final wave to the girls, Jack got into the car and set off, leaving behind the unexpected sanctuary his estate had become, heading toward answers he wasn't sure he was ready to hear. Jack Miller adjusted his tie, his reflection in the mirror showing a man used to commanding boardrooms, not dealing with traumatized children. He took a deep breath, bracing himself for another day of unexpected challenges. Entering the living room, he found the triplets, Emily, Olivia, and Sophia, as he had decided to temporarily name them, sitting in perfect symmetry on the sofa. Their identical gazes followed him, a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "Good morning, girls," Jack said, trying to sound cheerful. "Did you sleep well?" Silence. The girls only blinked in unison. Jack stifled a sigh. It had been a week since he found them on the road, and he still hadn't managed to get them to speak a single word. The child psychologist he had discreetly consulted suggested their trauma might have caused selective mutism. "How about a walk in the gardens today?" he suggested, remembering how they seemed to like the flowers. The girls exchanged quick looks among themselves, that silent conversation Jack couldn't decode. Finally, the one he called Emily, the middle child, who seemed to be the unofficial leader, gave a slight nod. As they strolled through the estate's vast gardens, Jack watched the girls with a mixture of fascination and frustration. They moved in perfect unison, occasionally stopping to examine a flower or an insect. Their identical faces lit up with small smiles, but they remained silent. Jack found himself desperately wishing to hear their voices, to know what they thought, what they felt. In business meetings, he could read people like open books, but these 3 little ones were a complete enigma. Back at the mansion, his phone rang. It was Mike Anderson. "Jack, I have some information," the detective's serious voice sounded. "But it's not good news." Jack stepped away from the girls, lowering his voice. "What did you find?" "No missing children reports match the girl's description," Mike explained. "But I found something strange. There are rumors of a secret cult in the mountains, about 100 miles from here. They supposedly believe in special children with supernatural abilities." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. "You think the girls—" "I'm not sure of anything yet," Mike cut in, "but I'll keep investigating. In the meantime, keep them safe. If this cult exists and they're looking for them—" "Got it," Jack replied, his mind spinning with the implications. "Thanks, Mike. Keep me posted." Ending the call, Jack turned to the girls. They watched him intently, as though they had understood every word of his conversation despite the distance. At that moment, Jack made a decision. Regardless of where these children came from or who might be after them, he would protect them. The estate would be their temporary haven until the full truth came to light. "Come on, girls," he called, forcing a smile. "How about we watch a movie?" The following hours were spent in the mansion's home theater, watching cartoons. Jack was amazed at how the girls reacted to the scenes, silently laughing at funny moments, squeezing each other's hands during tense parts. They were small glimpses of normalcy in a far-from-normal situation. That night, after tucking the girls into bed, a process that was getting easier by the day, Jack found himself in his office, a glass of whiskey in hand, lost in thought. The soft sound of footsteps made him look up. Susan entered, carrying a tray of tea. "They're asleep?" Jack asked. Susan nodded. "Like angels. Mr. Miller, may I speak freely?" Jack gestured for her to continue. "You're doing the right thing," she said gently. "These girls need you. I've never seen you so human." Jack raised an eyebrow, surprised by her observation. "What I mean," Susan continued, "is that you've always been a brilliant businessman, but now you're becoming something else." "Hey, father." The words hit Jack like a punch in the gut. A father. He'd never considered the idea before, always focused on expanding his empire. But now— "Thank you, Susan," he murmured, his voice thick with suppressed emotion. After Susan left, Jack sat for a long time, contemplating the future. He knew the challenges were only beginning. There was a mystery to solve, potential threats to face. But for the first time in his life, Jack Miller felt he was fighting for something bigger than money or power. He was fighting for 3 little lives that, somehow, in just a week, had become the center of his world. With renewed determination, Jack picked up his phone and typed a message to Mike. "Keep investigating. Do whatever it takes. The girls stay here until we figure this out." Hitting send, Jack stood and walked quietly to the girls' room. He stopped in the doorway, watching their sleeping forms. A wave of protection washed over him. "No matter what happens," he whispered into the silent room, "I'll take care of you. I promise." And with that silent promise, Jack Miller, the business magnate, took his first step on his most challenging and rewarding journey yet, becoming a family for 3 little strangers who had captured his heart. The sun had barely risen when Jack Miller met Mike Anderson in the parking lot of a rundown coffee shop on the outskirts of town. The detective, sporting dark circles under his eyes and clutching a cup of coffee, looked like he hadn't slept. "Ready for a long day?" Mike asked, his voice rough with exhaustion. Jack nodded, adjusting his sunglasses. "Let's go. We've got a lot of ground to cover." The 2 men climbed into Mike's unremarkable SUV, prepared for a trip they hoped would bring answers about the mysterious Triplets. Their first stop was St. Mary's Orphanage, a red brick building with a small, faded playground out front. The director, a stout woman named Mrs. Hawkins, greeted them with a wary look. "Blonde triplets." "No, we haven't had any children like that," she said, flipping through a large record book. "In fact, we haven't taken in any new kids in the last 6 months." Jack and Mike exchanged glances. It was the same everywhere they went. As they left, Jack couldn't help noticing the curious eyes of children behind foggy windows. His heart squeezed, thinking of Emily, Olivia, and Sophia. At least they were safe and comfortable at his estate. Their next stop was the local police station. Sheriff Johnson, a burly man with a thick mustache, welcomed them in his cluttered office. 3 identical girls. That would definitely grab attention around here, he said, scratching his head. But we haven't had any missing persons reports matching that description. Not here, nor in the neighboring counties. Mike pressed on. What about older reports? Maybe from a year or 2 ago. The sheriff frowned, thoughtful. Well, there was that strange case in the mountains about 18 months ago. Jack leaned forward, suddenly alert. What case? An anonymous call about children screaming coming from an isolated property, the sheriff explained, pulling out a dusty file. When we got there, the place was empty, but there were odd things. What kind of things? Mike asked, his detective instincts on high alert. The sheriff hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. Symbols on the walls, candles, an altar. Looked like some kind of ritual. Jack felt a chill run down his spine, recalling Mike's mention of a possible cult. Leaving the station, Jack and Mike decided to investigate the property the sheriff had mentioned. The narrow road led them to a secluded clearing in the mountains, where an abandoned wooden house stood, almost swallowed by overgrown vegetation. Stay alert, Mike muttered, drawing his gun as they approached. The interior of the house was in shambles, covered in dust and cobwebs, but on the walls, still visible, were the symbols the sheriff had talked about, concentric circles, interlaced triangles, and most disturbingly, the sketch of 3 identical childlike figures. My God, Jack whispered, his heart pounding. Do you think... Mike nodded grimly. Looks like we found a lead, but it raises more questions than answers. As they searched the place, Mike spotted something glinting under a loose floorboard. Crouching down, he retrieved a silver medallion. It bore the same symbol as the walls. That's... Jack began, but was cut off by the sound of a branch snapping outside. The 2 men whirled around. Through the grimy window, they saw a hooded figure watching them from the edge of the woods. In the blink of an eye, the figure vanished among the trees. Hey, Mike shouted, dashing outside with Jack on his heels, but the forest was silent and empty. Whoever it was had disappeared. On the drive back to town, the silence in the car was heavy. Jack was the first to speak. Mike, what the hell is going on here? The detective sighed, running a hand over his tired face. I'm not sure, Jack. But one thing is clear. These girls are at the center of something much bigger and potentially dangerous. Jack nodded, his resolve growing. We have to protect them. Whoever's behind this, whatever it is, we can't let them take the girls. Mike gave his friend a worried look. Jackie, you need to understand, if this really is a cult, if those kids were abducted, this goes way beyond the 2 of us. We need to involve the authorities. Not yet, Jack insisted. Not until we have more information. If we involve the police now, the girls might end up in the system. Or worse, be found by whoever's looking for them. Mike hesitated, clearly torn. Okay, he finally agreed. But we're treading on dangerous ground, Jack. We need to be extremely careful. By the time they returned to the estate, the sun was already setting. Jack found the girls in the garden, quietly playing with a few toys. On seeing him, their identical faces lit up with small smiles. In that moment, watching the 3 little figures against the sunset, Jack felt his determination solidify. No matter what they discovered, no matter how dangerous it got, he would do anything to keep these children safe. Thanks for your help today, Mike, Jack said, his voice thick with emotion. I'll keep them here for now. Keep investigating. We need to find out the whole truth. Mike nodded, his gaze softening as he looked at the girls. Be careful, Jack. I have a feeling this is far from over. As Mike left, Jack joined the girls in the garden. Emily, or at least the one he called Emily, offered him a toy, her eyes glowing with a trust that made his heart melt. It's all right, little ones, he murmured, sitting beside them. I promise I'll keep you safe. And as the sun set over the estate, Jack Miller knew that his quest for answers had only just begun. But with the 3 little lives now depending on him, he was determined to solve the mystery, no matter the cost. The sound of childish laughter echoed through the halls of the Miller mansion, a sound that until a few weeks ago would have been completely foreign in that place. Jack paused in the middle of his walk to the office, an involuntary smile forming on his face. Following the sound, he found Emily, Olivia, and Sophia in the kitchen, covered in flour from head to toe. Susan, normally the epitome of poise, had cookie dough in her hair and was laughing along with the girls as she tried to salvage what was left of the ingredients. "Looks like we're having a party here," Jack joked, leaning against the doorframe. The girls turned toward him in unison, their identical faces lit by mischievous grins. They still hadn't spoken, but their eyes conveyed more than words ever could. Susan wiped her hands on her apron. "Sorry about the mess, Mr. Miller. We were trying to bake cookies." Jack shook his head, still smiling. "Don't worry, Susan. It's good to see them having fun." Over the past few weeks, the mansion had transformed. Bright toys now occupied once stark corners. Children's drawings adorned the stainless steel fridge, and the sound of tiny footsteps and muffled giggles had become normal. Jack was amazed at how easily the girls adapted to life on the estate. They explored the gardens with insatiable curiosity, watched the horses in fascination, and seemed to flourish under Jack and Susan's care. Yet the challenges were many. Jackie, used to handling million-dollar contracts and tense negotiations, now found himself learning to braid hair, interpret unspoken needs, and deal with nightmares. One night, he woke to the sound of muffled sobbing. Rushing to the girls' room, he found all three curled up in a single bed, trembling. "Hey, it's okay," he murmured, sitting on the edge of the bed. "You're safe here." Without thinking, he began to hum a lullaby his own mother used to sing. Surprisingly, the girls calmed, their eyes locked on him with a mixture of curiosity and comfort. It was then that Jack realized how deeply these children had entered his heart. He would do anything to protect them, to see them happy and safe. By day, a routine took shape. Susan, who never imagined her duties would include childcare, proved to be a natural caregiver. She taught the girls to help with small tasks, turning chores into games and meals into culinary adventures. Jack, on the other hand, found himself juggling business calls with story time, online meetings with orchard walks. His associates noticed the change in him, a sparkle in his eyes, a softness in his voice that had never been there before. One day, while playing with the girls in the garden, his phone rang. It was Mike Anderson. "Jackin, there's a situation," the detective said, tension evident in his voice. "I found more information about that cult. Looks like they're on the move. I think they're searching for the girls." Jack's heart froze. He glanced at the triplets, who were happily working on a giant puzzle in the grass. "What do we know?" he asked, stepping away so they wouldn't hear. "Not much yet," Mike admitted, "but rumors say they believe the girls have some sort of special power. Jack, this is serious. We might need to involve the authorities." Jack closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the decision. "Give me a few more days, Mike. I need to think about what's best for them." After hanging up, Jack returned to the girls. They looked at him, their big eyes filled with a comprehension that seemed beyond their years. "It's okay," he assured them, more for his own sake than theirs. "Let's finish this puzzle, shall we?" That night, after putting the girls to bed, Jack found himself in his office, lost in thought. The idea of losing the triplets, of having them taken by some impersonal system, or worse, captured by people who might harm them, was unbearable. Susan entered silently, carrying a cup of tea. "They've changed you," she noted gently, placing the cup on his desk. Jack looked at her, surprised. "What do you mean?" "Before, it was all about business, about expanding the Miller empire," Susan explained. "Now, I see you putting their needs first without hesitation. It's wonderful to watch." Jack felt a knot in his throat. "They deserve a normal, happy life. After everything they've been through," Susan nodded. "And they'll have it, thanks to you. But Mr. Miller, Jack, you deserve this too. A family." Her words echoed in Jack's mind long after she left. Family. Was that what they had become? Him, Susan, and the triplets? The next day, Jack woke early and went to check on the girls. To his surprise, they were already up, sitting in a circle on the bedroom floor. When he entered, they turned to him and, for the first time since he had found them, spoke in unison. "Good morning, Daddy." Jack froze, his heart leaping into his throat. Tears stung his eyes unexpectedly. In that moment, All doubts vanished. No matter what the future held, whatever challenges lay ahead, these girls were his family now, and he would do anything to keep them safe and happy. Kneeling beside them, Jack opened his arms. "Good morning, my little ones," he responded, his voice thick with emotion. And as he embraced them, Jack Miller knew his life would never be the same. And he wouldn't have it any other way. Afternoon sunlight bathed the fields of the Miller estate in a gentle gold, while Jack watched the triplets running through the orchard. Their laughter, once so rare, now filled the air with contagious joy. Emily led the race, with Olivia and Sophia close behind, their blonde braids bouncing in the wind. Jack felt an involuntary smile form on his lips. It was hard to believe it had only been 2 months since that stormy night when he found them. Then, they were 3 terrified, silent figures. Now, they were vibrant children, their eyes shining with a mix of curiosity and trust. "Daddy, look!" Sophia shouted, holding up a perfectly red apple. "Can I eat it?" Jack's heart skipped a beat at the word daddy. It was still new, still caught him by surprise every time. "Of course, sweetheart," he replied, walking over. "But let's wash it first, okay?" The 3 girls ran over, each holding their own apple like a precious trophy. Jack led them back into the house, marveling at how naturally he now navigated his makeshift role as a father. In the kitchen, Susan was already preparing dinner. The aroma of roasted chicken and fresh herbs filled the air. "Look who's back, my little helpers," Susan exclaimed, smiling at the girls. "Ready to help me make dessert?" The triplets' eyes lit up, and soon the kitchen was abuzz with activity, flour flying, laughter echoing. Jack observed them from the doorway, his heart brimming with a warmth he never thought he would feel. Later, after dinner and bath time, which inevitably turned the bathroom into a makeshift water park, Jack found himself reading a bedtime story to the girls. They were nestled in his king-size bed, a tradition they had established over the past weeks. And the ugly duckling discovered he was actually a beautiful swan, Jack concluded, closing the book. "Like us, Daddy?" Olivia asked, her big eyes fixed on him. Jack frowned, confused. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "We were ugly ducklings," Emily explained softly, "but you turned us into swans." Emotion hit Jack like a wave. He pulled the 3 into a tight hug, tears unexpectedly burning his eyes. "You were always swans," he murmured. "I was just lucky enough to find you." After tucking them in, Jack headed downstairs to his office, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. He had never imagined he could love anyone so completely, so quickly. The sound of his phone pulled him from his thoughts. It was Mike Anderson. "Jack, we need to talk." The detective's serious tone came through. "I found something." Minutes later, Mike stepped into the office. His face was tense, worried. "What is it, Mike? Did you find something new?" Mike hesitated, then spoke. "Jack, I'm concerned, not just about the investigation, but about you." Jack frowned. "About me? Why?" "You're getting too attached to these girls," Mike said gently. "Jack, we still don't know where they came from. Who might be searching for them? What if we have to give them up?" The mere suggestion made Jack's heart clench. "No," he said firmly. "That's not going to happen." Mike sighed. "Jack, I know you care about them, but you need to be prepared for all possibilities. What if their biological parents show up? What if we find out they were taken from a loving family?" Jack stood abruptly, walking to the window. Outside, the night was calm, stars sparkling above the fields that, in the past weeks, had been filled with childish laughter and new memories. "You don't understand, Mike," Jack finally said, his voice low. "They're my family now. I can't imagine my life without them." Mike approached, placing a hand on his friend's shoulder. "I know, and that's why I'm worried. Jack, you built your whole life on business success. Now, in just a few weeks, everything has changed. I'm afraid if something goes wrong, you'll fall apart." Jack turned, meeting his friend's gaze. "And what if nothing goes wrong? What if this is exactly how it's meant to be? Mike, for the first time in my life, I feel like I have a purpose beyond making money. These girls, they've changed me." Mike studied Jack's face for a long moment, then slowly nodded. "I can see that. Just be careful, all right? Stay alert, for you and for them." After Mike left, Jack quietly climbed the stairs. He paused at the girls' door, watching their sleeping forms. Emily's arm lay protectively over Sophia, while Olivia clutched her favorite teddy bear. In that moment, Jack knew that no matter what Mike said, no matter the risks, he would do anything for these three little lives. They had filled a void in his heart he hadn't even known existed. "I love you," he whispered into the silent room, "and I promise I'll do everything I can to keep you safe and happy." With one last look at his sleeping daughters, Jack gently closed the door. The future was uncertain, the dangers all too real. But the bonds that had formed here were stronger than any threat. And Jack Miller was determined to fight for his new family, no matter the cost. The law firm's office was quiet, except for the soft hum of the air conditioner and the occasional rustle of papers. Jack Miller sat rigidly in a leather chair, his gaze fixed on the documents in front of him. Across the polished mahogany desk, attorney Sarah Thornton watched him closely. "Mr. Miller," she began, her voice calm and professional, "I understand the urgency, but I must warn you this adoption process is unusual, to say the least." Jack nodded, running a hand through his graying hair. "I know, Ms. Thornton, but these girls, they need a home, stability." Sarah offered a soft smile. "And from what you've told me, they've already found that with you. But legally, we must follow all protocols. Detective Anderson is helping with the background checks." As if summoned by her words, Mike Anderson walked in, carrying a thick folder. His expression was serious, but determination shone in his eyes. "I have the information you requested," he announced, setting the folder on the desk. "There are no records of missing children matching Emily, Olivia, and Sophia in any national database. It's like they simply appeared." Sarah frowned, flipping through the documents. "That complicates things, but also simplifies them in certain ways. Without any claimants, we can proceed with the adoption as though they were orphans." Jack felt a weight lift from his shoulders, yet also a pang of sadness. Some family out there had lost 3 angels, and he couldn't help feeling guilty about his own joy. "How long will it take?" he asked, his voice rough with emotion. Sarah hesitated. "Normally, this would take months, maybe even a year. But given these special circumstances and, frankly, your resources, Mr. Miller, we can expedite. Perhaps in a few weeks." Jack nodded, feeling a mix of relief and anxiety. "Thank you, both of you. It means more than I can express." As they left the office, Mike put a hand on Jack's shoulder. "You're sure about this, Jack? Once these papers are signed?" Jack turned to his friend, his eyes shining with fierce determination. "I've never been so sure of anything in my life, Mike. These girls are my family now." Weeks passed in a blur of social worker visits, mountains of paperwork, and precious moments with the triplets. Jack was constantly amazed by the small joys of fatherhood, the pride he felt when Emily learned to tie her shoes, the thrill of hearing Olivia hum a lullaby to her sisters, the tenderness of comforting Sophia after a nightmare. One sunny morning, it happened. Jack was in the kitchen, spectacularly failing at making pancakes for breakfast. The girls walked in, still in their pajamas, their blonde hair messy. "Good morning, girls," Jack smiled, flipping a pancake that resembled abstract art. "Ready for a culinary adventure?" Emily, ever the bold one, stepped up to the stove, wide-eyed with fascination. "Can I help, Daddy?" The world seemed to stop. "What did you say, sweetheart?" The 3 girls exchanged glances, then in perfect sync said, "Good morning, Daddy." The spatula dropped from Jack's hand, forgotten. In 2 strides, he was on his knees, hugging all 3 with all the strength he dared. Tears streamed down his face, but he didn't care. "Yes," he whispered, voice trembling. "Yes, I'm your daddy. And you're my precious girls." The day they signed the final adoption papers coincided with the 1-year anniversary of the night Jack found the girls on that rainy road. He decided it was the perfect occasion for a celebration. The Miller estate was unrecognizable. Colorful balloons floated in every corner. A huge tent was set up on the lawn, and the smell of barbecue and sweets filled the air. Jack had invited everyone: Mike, Sarah Thornton, the estate staff, and even some of his business associates who had become staunch supporters of his new life as a single father. The triplets were radiant in matching sky blue dresses, their laughter ringing out across the yard as they darted from one activity to another. Jack watched them, heart full, scarcely believing how much a year could change. Susan approached, handing him a glass of champagne. "They're happy," she noted, smiling. "And so are you, Mr. Miller." Jack nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "More than I ever imagined possible, Susan." Mike joined them, his face more relaxed than Jack had seen in months. "Well, looks like everything worked out after all," he commented, clinking his glass with Jack's. "Thanks to you, Mike," Jack replied sincerely. "We wouldn't be here without your help." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Jack gathered everyone for a special toast. With Emily, Olivia, and Sophia by his side, he raised his glass. "A year ago, I was a different man," he began, his voice full of emotion. "I thought I knew everything about success and what mattered in life. Then, on a stormy night, fate brought me 3 angels." He smiled at the girls, who gazed back in adoration. "Emily, Olivia, and Sophia showed me the true meaning of love, family, and purpose. Today, we're not just celebrating a year together, but the official start of our journey as a family." Applause and a few awes came from the crowd. Jack knelt, so he was level with the girls. "You 3 are the best gift I could have asked for," he said softly. "Thank you for choosing me as your dad." The triplets hugged him at once, their voices mingling in an emotional chorus. "We love you, Daddy." As the party continued around him, Jack Miller held his daughters close, his heart overflowing with gratitude and love. The road to this moment hadn't been easy, and he knew there would still be challenges ahead. But with Emily, Olivia, and Sophia by his side, he was ready to face anything. This was more than a new beginning. It was the start of a life Jack never knew he had always wanted. A life filled with children's laughter, tight hugs, and the unconditional love of 3 little girls who had stolen his heart on a stormy night. The sun had barely risen when Jack Miller felt a familiar weight on his bed. Opening his eyes, he came face to face with 3 pairs of identical blue eyes staring at him, shimmering with anticipation. "Happy birthday, my princesses," he murmured, a sleepy smile forming on his face. "We're big now, Daddy," Emily exclaimed, jumping excitedly. "Yeah, 6 whole years," Olivia added, holding up 6 fingers. Sophia, always the quiet one, simply smiled and cuddled closer to Jack. Jack hugged them all, amazed at how quickly time had passed. It felt like only yesterday he'd found them on that road, small and scared. Now they were bright, lively girls, eager to embrace this new stage of life. "Come on, let's get breakfast," Jack announced, getting out of bed. "I bet Susan has something special planned for you." In the kitchen, they were greeted by a burst of color. Balloons floated at the ceiling, a banner read, "Happy Birthday," and the table was piled high with treats. Susan, with a beaming smile, was putting the finishing touches on an elaborate cake. "Happy birthday, girls," she said, hugging each of them. As the triplets delighted in unicorn-shaped pancakes, a skill Susan had perfected in recent months, Jack checked his phone. Dozens of emails and messages awaited him, reminding him of his looming responsibilities. With a sigh, he put the phone aside. Today was about the girls. Work could wait. The birthday party was a roaring success. The Miller Estate's garden had been transformed into a children's paradise, with bounce houses, cotton candy, and even a small carousel. Neighborhood kids ran around squealing with joy. Jack watched it all with a blend of happiness and wistfulness. His girls were growing so fast, soon they'd be starting elementary school, a thought that filled him with both pride and worry. "They look happy," a familiar voice said at his side. Mike Anderson had arrived carrying 3 identical gifts. Jack nodded, smiling. "More than I ever dreamed. Thanks for coming, Mike." The detective hesitated, his face turning serious. "Jack, we need to talk. Not today, but soon. I've found something." Jack's heart skipped a beat. "About the girls," Mike nodded gravely. "It's complicated, but let's not ruin their day tomorrow, okay?" Jack agreed, trying to push aside the gnawing worry forming inside him. Today was a day to celebrate. In the weeks that followed, Jack found himself on an emotional roller coaster of duties. The girls had started primary school, a milestone that brought a slew of new challenges. Mornings became frantic. 3 lunches to pack, 3 backpacks to check, 3 heads of blonde hair to brush and braid, a skill Jack had finally mastered thanks to countless tutorial videos. "Daddy, I forgot my coloring book," Olivia shouted, already in the car. "I don't want to go today," Sophia muttered, clinging to Jack's leg. Emily, ever the leader, tried to organize her sisters. "Come on, we'll be late." Jack took a deep breath, feeling pulled in 1,000 different directions, and this was all before 8 a.m. Work wasn't any easier. Meetings piled up, contracts needed reviewing, and major decisions awaited his attention. Jack constantly felt torn between his role as CEO and his role as a father. One afternoon, in the middle of a crucial video conference, his phone rang. It was the school. "Mr. Miller, Sophia isn't feeling well. Could you come pick her up?" Jack looked at the computer screen where important investors were waiting for his presentation, and then at the photo of the triplets on his desk. There was no choice. "I'll be there in 15 minutes, he said, already standing up. His associates were surprised when he abruptly postponed the meeting, but Jack didn't care. His priorities had shifted dramatically in recent years. Driving to the school, Jack reflected on how his life had changed. In the old days, his focus was solely on business and growing his empire. Now, his most important decisions involved bedtime stories and scraped knees. One evening, after tucking the girls in, Jack found Mike waiting in his office. The detective's face was grave. "What did you find, Mike?" Jack asked, feeling a knot in his stomach. Mike placed a folder on the desk. "Remember that cult we mentioned years ago? I found concrete evidence of its existence. And there's more. They're looking for special children, kids like your girls." Jack felt the blood run cold in his veins. "What do you mean by special?" Mike hesitated. "Jack, have you ever noticed anything unusual about the girls, abilities they shouldn't have?" Jack thought about the countless times the triplets seemed to communicate without words, about how wilted plants seemed to revive under Sophia's touch, how Emily sometimes seemed to predict events before they happened. "They're special to me," Jack said defensively. "That's all that matters." Mike sighed. "I know, but Jack, if this cult is after them, we need to be prepared. They could be dangerous." Jack's mind spun. After years of peace, the threat he had always feared was finally materializing. But now it wasn't just 3 frightened children he was protecting. They were his daughters, the center of his world. "What do we do now?" Jack asked, his voice steady despite the fear he felt. Mike met his gaze. "We keep investigating. We tighten security. And you, Jack, keep being the best father these girls could have." That night, after his talk with Mike, Jack went to the girls' room. They slept peacefully, unaware of adult worries. Jack sat on the edge of the bed, studying their serene faces. Emily with her leadership spirit, Olivia with her boundless creativity, Sophia with her gentle kindness, each one unique, each one infinitely precious. "I promise," he whispered into the dark, "that no matter what happens, I'll always protect you. We'll grow together, learn together, face any challenge. Because we're a family." With a gentle kiss on each forehead, Jack left the room, determined to face whatever the future held, balancing work and fatherhood, unraveling the mysteries of the girl's past, guarding against possible threats. These were all challenges he'd take on. Because for Jack Miller, there was no more important role, no greater reward, than being the father of Emily, Olivia, and Sophia, and he would do whatever it took to keep them safe and happy, growing together in their unlikely but perfect family. The sun had barely risen, yet the Miller mansion was already bustling with activity. Jack, with a tie hanging around his neck and a cup of coffee in hand, rushed from one room to another, checking backpacks and lunchboxes. "Emily, did you grab your pencil case? Olivia, where's your coat? Sophia, sweetheart, you need to eat something before we go." The triplets, dressed in identical school uniforms and braided hair, a skill Jack had mastered after countless evenings of practice, were a bundle of nerves and excitement. "What if the other kids don't like us, Daddy?" Sophia asked quietly, her big eyes filled with worry. Jack knelt down, meeting her gaze. "They're going to love you, Princess. How could they not? You're the most amazing kids in the world." Emily, always the leader, took Sophia's hand. "Don't worry, we'll stick together." Olivia nodded enthusiastically, completing their united trio. Jack's heart swelled with pride and a tinge of melancholy. His girls were growing so fast. On the drive to Oakville Elementary School, Jack couldn't help noticing a black vehicle a few cars back. He recognized it as one of Mike Anderson's men. Since discovering leads about the cult, security had been heightened. Jack felt grateful but also uneasy. Would his daughters ever have a truly normal life? Pulling up to the school, Jack helped the girls out of the car. The yard was packed with kids and parents, a cacophony of excited voices and the occasional wail from younger children. Principal Thompson greeted them with a warm smile. "Welcome to Oakville, Mr. Miller, and hello, Emily, Olivia, and Sophia. We're delighted to have you here." The girls mumbled shy hellos, suddenly looking very small amidst the first day chaos. "Remember," Jack said, kneeling to give them one last hug, "you're brave, smart, and loved. You'll do great." With a final wave, he watched them follow Principal Thompson into the building. His heart felt like it was going to burst from his chest. It was just school, he tried to tell himself. But for a father who had protected his daughters so fiercely for so long, it felt like a giant leap. The first days were a whirlwind of emotions. Jack found himself checking his phone constantly, half expecting a call from the school saying something had gone wrong. But to his relief and pride, the girls seemed to be adjusting well. "Daddy, I drew a picture of our family today," Olivia exclaimed one afternoon, proudly showing him a colorful page. "My teacher said I'm really good at math," Emily mentioned over dinner. Even shy Sophia was blossoming. "There's a girl in my class who likes butterflies too," she whispered, a small smile on her lips. Jack watched in wonder as his daughters grew and flourished, making friends and discovering their unique talents. But with this newfound freedom came new challenges. One afternoon, he got a call from the school. Sophia had a strange episode during recess. Apparently, she became extremely agitated, insisting something bad was about to happen. Minutes later, one of the swings broke, nearly injuring a child. "It was probably just a coincidence," the teacher assured him over the phone, "but we thought you should know." Jack thanked her, hanging up with a sense of unease. It wasn't the first time Sophia seemed to foresee things, and it wasn't the only unusual skill among the girls. That night, after the girls were in bed, Jack called Mike Anderson. "We need to talk," he said, voice tense. "The girls' abilities, they're becoming more obvious." Mike arrived at the mansion in under an hour. His face was grim as Jack let him in. "What happened?" the detective asked, taking a seat. Jack relayed the incident at school, as well as other small occurrences he'd noticed over the years. Plants thriving under Sophia's touch, the way Emily sometimes knew exactly what her sisters were thinking, Olivia's uncanny intuition for solving puzzles. Mike listened intently, brow furrowed in concentration. When Jack finished, he let out a long sigh. "Jack, this confirms our suspicions. Your girls are special, and that makes them targets." Jack's heart tightened. "What do we do?" "For now, we stay vigilant," Mike said. "I've increased security around the estate and the school. But Jack, you need to prepare the girls. They have to understand they should be careful with their abilities." The thought of having that conversation with his daughters seemed impossible. How do you explain to 6-year-olds that they're different, possibly in danger, without terrifying them? In the days that followed, Jack watched his daughters even more closely. At school, they seemed normal, just 3 sweet girls making friends, learning. But at home, away from prying eyes, he noticed the little things, how they communicated without words, how they seemed to know things they shouldn't. One evening, while reading them a bedtime story, Jack decided it was time. "Girls," he began, closing the book. You know you're very special to me, right?" 3 pairs of blue eyes stared back curiously. "Well, you're special in other ways too, ways some people might not understand," Emily frowned. "You mean like when I know what Olivia's thinking?" Jack nodded, surprised by her perceptiveness. Exactly. And how Sophia sometimes knows when something's going to happen, or how Olivia's plants always grow so well. The girls exchanged looks, that silent language passing among them. "Is that bad, Daddy?" Sophia asked, her voice trembling slightly. "No, my love," Jack assured, pulling them into a tight embrace. "It's not bad. It's part of who you are. But it's important we're cautious. Not everyone would understand." As he hugged his daughters, Jack felt a blend of fear and determination. The world out there could be scary, full of unknown threats. But here, in this moment, he swore he'd do everything in his power to protect his special girls. School was just the first step in a much larger journey. A journey Jack Miller would face with all the love and courage he possessed. Because for him, Emily, Olivia, and Sophia weren't just special children, they were his entire world. Late afternoon sunlight reflected golden rays across the lake on the Miller estate. Jack stood on the porch, watching Emily, Olivia, and Sophia play by the water's edge, their laughter echoing through the property. It was a peaceful Saturday, the sort of day Jack had learned to treasure since becoming a father. He was about to call the girls in for dinner when he noticed something unusual. A boat he didn't recognize was slowly approaching the shore of the lake. Jack frowned. This was private property, part of his land. Visitors were rare, especially unannounced. "Girls," he called, trying to keep his voice calm. "Time to come inside. Dinner's almost ready." The triplets glanced at him, then at the approaching boat. For a moment, Jack saw a strange expression pass over their identical faces, as if they sensed something he could not. "Daddy?" Sophia asked softly, worry in her voice. "It's all right, sweetheart," Jack assured her, stepping off the porch to join them. "Let's head inside, okay?" As he guided the girls back to the house, Jack glanced over his shoulder. The boat had docked, and a man was stepping onto the shore. Even at a distance, Jack felt the intensity of the stranger's gaze as he surveyed the property, almost as though he were searching for something, or someone. Inside the house, Jack quickly activated the security system, something he rarely did during the day. "Susan," he called, "please stay with the girls in the playroom. I have a quick matter to handle." The triplets gave him curious looks, but didn't object when Susan led them upstairs. Jack could feel their anxious gazes on his back as he reached for his phone. "Mike," he said as soon as the detective answered, "we have a situation. A strange boat just docked at the lake. A man got off and is surveying the property." "I'm on my way," Mike replied without hesitation. "Don't approach him, Jack. Keep the girls inside." Jack nodded, knowing Mike couldn't see him. Hanging up, he went to the front window and watched warily. The man from the boat was now walking along the lake's edge, his movements slow and deliberate. He looked to be in his 40s, with dark hair and a posture that suggested purpose. Every so often, he stopped and stared directly at the house, as if aware he was being observed. Jack's heart pounded. Could this man be part of the cult Mike had mentioned? Had they finally come for the girls after all these years? Movement upstairs caught Jack's attention. The triplets were at the bedroom window, their faces pressed to the glass, watching the stranger intently. Jack was about to call Susan to pull them away when he noticed something odd. The man had stopped walking and was staring directly at the girl's window. For a long moment, it was as if an invisible current connected the stranger and the three children. The sound of tires crunching on gravel outside broke the spell. Mike had arrived, accompanied by two men Jack recognized as part of his security team. "Stay here," Mike ordered Jack as he stepped out of the car. "We'll handle this." Jack watched anxiously as Mike and his men approached the stranger. Surprisingly, the man didn't try to run or resist. He simply stood there, waiting for them to draw closer. From his vantage point at the window, Jack couldn't hear the conversation, but he could see Mike's tense body language. After a few minutes of talking, Mike gestured, and one of his men escorted the stranger to the house. Jack opened the door, his heart pounding in his chest. Up close, the man seemed even more intense, his blue eyes shockingly similar to the girls, scanning the interior of the home. "Jack," Mike said, his voice tight. "This is David Thompson. He says he has information about the girls." Jack's world spun. "What do you mean?" David took a step forward, his voice calm but laden with emotion. "Mr. Miller, and I know this is going to sound unbelievable, but those 3 little girls upstairs are my daughters." The silence that followed was deafening. Jack felt as though the ground had been yanked out from under him. "That's impossible," he finally managed. I adopted them legally. There were no parents." "I know," David interrupted gently. "And I'm grateful you took care of them, but they were taken from me years ago, kidnapped by people who believed they were special." Jack's mind reeled. All the unanswered questions about the girls' past, their unique abilities, the mysterious cult. It all seemed to converge in this moment. Mike placed a hand on Jack's shoulder. "We need to hear what he has to say, Jack." But not here, not with the girls so close. As if on cue, a noise at the top of the stairs drew everyone's attention. Emily, Olivia, and Sophia stood there, their wide eyes fixed on David. For a moment, no one moved. Then, to Jack's shock, the 3 girls descended the stairs in unison, stopping in front of David. "You came for us," Sophia said, her voice small but firm. It wasn't a question. David knelt, tears shining in his eyes. "Yes, my little ones, I finally found you." Jack felt his world crumble. The girls, his daughters, looked at David with a mixture of recognition and curiosity. It was as if some part of them had always known this moment would come. "Jack," Mike said quietly, "I think we all have a lot to talk about." As night fell over the Miller estate, the mysterious boat remained docked on the lake, a silent reminder that the past is never truly forgotten. And for Jack, Emily, Olivia, and Sophia, the future suddenly seemed more uncertain than ever. The Miller mansion's living room, usually a refuge of comfort and family warmth, was cloaked in palpable tension. Jack sat rigidly in his favorite armchair, his eyes never leaving the 3 small figures huddled together on the opposite sofa. Emily, Olivia, and Sophia, arms wrapped around one another, glanced nervously between Jack and the man who had just turned their world upside down. David Thompson, the alleged biological father, stood near the fireplace, his posture taut, reflecting the gravity of the situation. Mike Anderson, ever the professional, positioned himself between them, ready to intervene if necessary. "Perhaps," Mike suggested gently, breaking the heavy silence, "we should start at the beginning, Mr. Thompson." David nodded, running a hand through his graying hair. His eyes, the same deep shade of blue as the girls, brimmed with restrained emotion. "7 years ago," he began, his voice rough, "I was a genetics researcher. My wife, Sarah, and I were studying rare mutations, unique traits that appeared in certain family lines." Jack noticed the girls leaning in slightly, as though a part of them subconsciously recognized the story. "When we found out we were expecting triplets, we were overjoyed," David continued. "But soon we realized our daughters were different, special." "Different how?" Jack asked, his voice tinged with both curiosity and apprehension. David looked straight at the girls. They could communicate without words from the time they were babies. Plants bloomed out of season around them. And sometimes they seemed to know things they shouldn't. Jack felt a shiver run down his spine. It was exactly what he had observed over the years. "We continued our research in secret, trying to understand our daughter's unique abilities," David went on, "but then someone found out." His voice caught, and Mike gently offered him a glass of water. After a moment, David continued, "It was a colleague, someone I considered a friend. When he learned about the girls, he became obsessed. He said they were the key to unlocking major genetic mysteries. When we refused to turn our daughters into lab specimens, he kidnapped them," Mike finished softly. David nodded, tears now flowing freely down his face. "That was 4 years ago. Sarah and I were at a conference. We came home and they were gone. Our babysitter was unconscious and the house was ransacked." Jack felt his heart clench. He looked at his daughters, because no matter what, they would always be his daughters in his heart, and saw confusion and fear in their eyes. "Why didn't you find them sooner?" Jack asked, a hint of accusation in his tone. "We searched everywhere," David replied, pain evident in every word. "It was as if they vanished into thin air. After a year, The police shelved the case, but Sarah and I never gave up. Mike cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. Mr. Thompson brought evidence, Jack. Photos, medical records, even DNA tests he secretly ran using hair samples from the girls that he obtained at school. Jack felt the floor vanish beneath him. It was true. All of it. "What happened to your wife?" he asked quietly. David's face twisted in pain. "Sarah, she couldn't cope. 2 years ago, she left us. The burden was too heavy." A heavy silence settled over the room. Jack looked at the girls, his heart aching at the confusion and fear etched on their faces. They didn't remember. How could they? They were so young when they were taken. "Girls," Jack said softly, "do you remember anything? Anything about Han before?" The triplets exchanged glances, a silent conversation passing among them. Finally, Emily spoke. "Sometimes we dream of a different house, and a woman with golden hair who sings to us." David stifled a sob. "Sarah," he murmured. "She always sang you to sleep." Olivia, ever the empath, stood hesitantly and approached David. "You're sad," she observed simply, "because of us." David knelt, meeting her gaze. "No, sweetheart. I'm sad because I lost so much time away from you, but now I'm so happy to have found you." He reached out as if to touch Olivia's face, then stopped and uncertain. The girl looked at Jack for guidance. Jack's heart broke. He wanted to shout, to protest, to say they were his daughters, but he knew deep down he couldn't deny the truth. "It's okay," he said, his voice trembling. He's your biological father." Olivia, still cautious, took a step forward, allowing David to touch her cheek. The moment his fingers brushed her skin, a spark seemed to pass between them. Olivia's eyes widened. I remember," she whispered. "The garden with the blue roses. You grew them for us." David nodded, tears rolling down his face. "Yes, my little one. You all loved those roses." Emily and Sophia approached, drawn by the shared memory. Slowly, fragments of recollection began to surface. A house by the sea, a shaggy dog named Max, nights spent reading stories by the fireplace. Jack watched, his heart breaking a little more with each memory they recovered. They were remembering a life before him, a life stolen from them. Mike stepped closer to Jack, placing a hand on his shoulder. "This doesn't change who you are to them," he said quietly. "How you saved them, raised them, loved them when no one else was there." Jack nodded, unable to speak. He knew Mike was right, but watching his girls reconnect with a past he wasn't part of was almost too much to bear. After what felt like an eternity, the triplets turned to Jack, their faces a tapestry of conflicting emotions. "Daddy," Sophia said, her voice small and uncertain. Jack knelt, opening his arms. In an instant, he was surrounded by 3 pairs of arms, the familiar scent of their children's shampoo enveloping him. "I love you," he murmured, voice choked. "More than anything in this world." "We love you too, Daddy," Emily responded, her voice muffled against Jack's chest. David watched, gratitude and heartbreak in his eyes. He had found his daughters, but clearly they had found a new father as well. Mike cleared his throat softly, gathering everyone's attention. "We have a lot to discuss," he said. "About the future, about keeping the girls safe, but I think we've had enough emotion for one day." Jack stood, still holding the girls close. "Mr. Thompson, David," he began, "you're welcome to stay. We have plenty to talk about, and I'm sure the girls have lots of questions." David nodded, the gratitude evident in his eyes. "Thank you, Mr. Miller. You cared for them when I couldn't. I'll never be able to thank you enough." As night descended on the Miller estate, a new reality began to take shape. Truths had been revealed, pasts unearthed. But at the heart of it all were 3 little girls, loved by 2 fathers in different but equally profound ways. The future was uncertain, full of challenges and tough decisions. But one thing was clear. Emily, Olivia, and Sophia would never again have to face the world alone. They now had not 1, but 2 fathers willing to move mountains for them. And as stars began to sparkle in the night sky, A new journey was just beginning for the Miller-Thompson family. Morning arrived at the Miller estate with an air of anticipation and tension. Jack had spent a sleepless night, his mind awash with questions and worries. The girls, oddly enough, seemed calmer than he would have expected, as though a part of them had always known this day would come. In the living room, now turned into a kind of makeshift headquarters, Jack, David, Mike, and the triplets gathered. Susan moved quietly around them, serving coffee and cookies, her face a mask of discreet concern. David, he appearing equally exhausted and invigorated, began to tell his story in detail. After the girls were taken, he began, his voice trembling, Sarah and I turned our world upside down looking for them. We left our jobs, sold our house, used up all our savings. Jack watched the girls as they listened. Their identical faces were intent, as though they were striving to retrieve memories long forgotten. David continued, We followed every lead, no matter how small. We crisscrossed the country countless times, chasing rumors and sightings. There were moments I thought I'd go insane with despair. He paused, swallowing hard. Sarah, she couldn't bear it. The pain of losing our girls consumed her. 2 years ago, His voice broke. Jack felt a wave of compassion for this man who had lost so much. Despite his own confusion and pain, he couldn't help admiring David's determination. Mike then stepped forward, setting a thick folder on the coffee table. I spent the night verifying Mr. Thompson's story, he said, his professional tone hiding any emotion. Everything checks out. I have police reports from the abduction, records of the search, even newspaper articles from the time. He spread the documents across the table. Jack leaned in, his eyes scanning the headlines. Triplets mysteriously disappear. Desperate parents continue search for missing daughters. 1 year with no answers in the Thompson triplets case. But how? Jack began, his mind struggling to piece it together. How did they end up on that road where I found them? David shook his head. We still don't know all the details, but we believe the man who took them, Dr. Erickson, kept them hidden for years, studying them. When he realized he was about to be caught, he must have abandoned them. The girls, who had been silent until now, suddenly spoke up. Emily, always the spokeswoman, said softly, Sometimes we dream of a dark place, and a man in a white coat. David turned pale, and Jack felt his heart clench. The memories were there, buried, but not gone. Mike continued, We found evidence of a secret lab about 50 miles from here. It was abandoned in a hurry a few days before you found the girls, Jack. The reality of it all was crystallizing. Jack glanced at his daughters, still his daughters, no matter what, and saw in them a mix of curiosity and apprehension. What happens now? He asked, the fear of losing them barely concealed in his voice. Surprisingly, David was the one who answered. Mr. Miller, Jack, he began, hesitant. You took care of my daughters when I couldn't. You gave them a home, love, and stability. I can't just uproot them from all that. Jack looked at him, both startled and relieved. David went on, But they're also my daughters. I've spent the last 4 years searching for them, and now that I've found them, I can't just walk away. A heavy silence settled over the room. The implications of David's words hung in the air. It was Olivia who broke the silence. Can we have 2 daddies? She asked innocently. The question, so simple yet so profound, seemed to dissolve some of the tension. Jack and David exchanged looks, a silent understanding passing between them. Maybe, Jack said slowly, we can find a way to make this work, for the girls' sake. David nodded, relief evident on his face. I agree. They need stability, continuity, and of course they need protection. Mike, who had remained silent, finally spoke up. Dr. Erickson is still at large, and there are indications he hasn't given up his experiments. The girls could still be in danger. The mention of danger made both Jack and David instinctively move closer to the triplets. Then we work together, Jack declared firmly, to keep them safe, happy, and loved. David extended his hand, and Jack shook it without hesitation. It was a silent pact, a promise to place the girls' well-being above all else. The triplets observed the scene with a mix of relief and excitement. For them, the idea of having 2 dads didn't seem strange or complicated. It simply meant more love, more protection. "So," Emily asked, her eyes bright with curiosity, "can we hear more stories about when we were babies?" David laughed, tears of joy in his eyes. "Of course, my little one. I have so many stories to tell." Jack felt a pang in his heart, but pushed it aside. This wasn't about him. It was about the girls, about giving them the chance to know their full story, their past and their present. As the morning wore on, the living room filled with stories. David shared memories of the girls' early years, while Jack recounted their adventures on the estate. The triplets soaked it all in, finally filling in the blanks in their young lives. Mike watched with a quiet smile. He knew there were still challenges ahead. Dr. Erickson was still out there, and the girls' unique abilities remained a mystery. But for now, on this sunny morning at the Miller estate, past and present had met in unexpected harmony. And at the center of it all were Emily, Olivia, and Sophia, three extraordinary girls who, against all odds, had found not one, but two fathers ready to move mountains for them. Summer sunlight bathed the Miller estate in a golden glow, while the sound of children's laughter echoed through the air. In the sprawling garden, decked out with colorful balloons and streamers, a most unusual yet heartwarming scene unfolded. Emily, Olivia, and Sophia, now 7 years old, ran around a large picnic table, their blonde braids bobbing in the breeze. Jack Miller and David Thompson, side by side, watched them with matching smiles of pride and love. "I still can't believe we got here," Jack murmured, running a hand through his graying hair. David nodded, his eyes never leaving the girls. "It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?" The last year had been a roller coaster of emotions and adjustments for everyone. After the shocking revelation about the girls' past, Jack and David had devoted themselves to creating a stable, loving environment for the triplets. With help from Dr. Laura Chen, a child psychologist specializing in trauma, they had gradually introduced the truth to the girls. It took months of carefully planned sessions, stitching together past and present like a complex puzzle. "Remember the first time we told them about having two dads?" Jack asked, a nostalgic smile on his lips. David chuckled. "How could I forget?" Olivia asked if that meant they'd get double the Christmas presents. The transition hadn't been easy. There were moments of confusion, tears, and even anger. But with patience, love, and Dr. Chen's tireless support, the girls had flourished. The Miller estate had been transformed to accommodate their new reality. An entire wing was renovated to create space for David, allowing him to be close to his daughters without intruding on the home Jack had established. Susan, always adaptable, embraced her expanded role with grace. She became not just a housekeeper, but a motherly figure to the girls, filling a void left by Sarah's absence. Mike Anderson, initially wary of the unconventional arrangement, became a frequent visitor and close family friend. His expertise in security proved invaluable, helping set up protocols to keep the girls safe without stifling them. "Daddy! Papa David! Come see what we made!" Sophia called out excitedly. Approaching the picnic table, they saw an elaborate sandcastle the girls had constructed in a large sandbox. Most astonishing, though, were the small flowers sprouting around the structure, as if they had grown there instantly. Jack and David exchanged knowing looks. The girls' unique abilities continued to develop, bringing both wonder and challenges. "It's beautiful, sweeties," David praised, kneeling down to examine it more closely. "Can we keep it forever?" Emily asked, eyes shining with hope. Jack smiled gently. "Remember what we talked about using your special gifts?" The three nodded solemnly. "Only at home, and with caution," they recited in unison. The arrival of a car interrupted the moment. Mike Anderson stepped out, carrying a large wrapped present. "Uncle Mike!" the girls shouted, rushing over to hug him. Mike laughed, balancing the gift as three blonde torpedoes barreled into him. "Happy birthday, my little detectives!" As the girls led Mike away to show off their creations, Susan emerged from the house, carrying a lavishly decorated cake with 7 candles, one set for each girl. "Time for birthday wishes," she announced, placing the cake on the central table. Everyone gathered in a circle around the triplets. Jack and David stood side by side, their hands on the girls' shoulders. Susan, tears of joy in her eyes, started singing, soon joined by everyone else. When it was time to make a wish, Emily, Olivia, and Sophia exchanged glances, silently communicating as only they could. Then, with a big smile, they blew out the candles together. "What did you wish for?" Mike asked, curious. Sophia, usually the quiet one, answered with a radiant smile. "That our family always stays together like this." Jack's heart flooded with emotion. He glanced at David, seeing the same feeling reflected in the other man's eyes. As the girls ran off to open presents, Jack pulled David and Mike aside. "Any news on Erickson?" he asked in a low voice. Mike shook his head. "Nothing yet, but we haven't let our guard down. Security around the estate and school is tighter than ever." David sighed. "Part of me wants to keep them here forever, sheltered from everything." Jack placed a hand on David's shoulder. "I know, but they deserve to live, to grow, to explore the world. Our job is to make sure they can do that safely." The three men watched the girls playing, their laughter echoing across the yard. Despite the concerns lingering at the back of their minds, the moment was pure joy. The afternoon passed with games, stories, and plenty of hugs. The girls alternated between Jack and David, sometimes whispering secrets, other times simply cuddling in silence. As dusk painted the sky with pink and gold, the family gathered once more around the picnic table for a festive dinner. Jack raised his glass, drawing everyone's attention. "I'd like to make a toast," he began, voice thick with emotion. "To family. Not the family we planned or expected, but the family destiny gave us. A family full of love, courage, and just a little magic." Everyone raised their glasses, the girls with their juice cups, echoing, "To family." David then stood. "And a special toast to our birthday girls, Emily, Olivia, and Sophia. You are the heart of this family. Your strength, kindness, and joy inspire us every day to be better." The triplets beamed, their faces lit by the soft glow of candles and the love surrounding them. As the evening wore on, the party continued. Mike told detective stories that made the girls laugh. Susan handed out generous slices of cake, and Jack and David watched it all with full hearts. In a quiet moment, Jack found himself reflecting on the incredible journey that had brought them here, from a chance encounter on a stormy night to this unexpected, wonderful family. Sure, there were challenges on the horizon, the mystery of the girls' powers, the distant threat of Erickson, the trials of raising three extraordinary children in a world that might not always understand. But looking at Emily, playing hide-and-seek with Mike, Olivia, sketching surprisingly accurate portraits of everyone, and Sophia, making tiny flowers bloom at Susan's feet, Jack knew they would face any challenge together. This wasn't the life he had planned. It was infinitely better. As the last light of day faded and stars began to glimmer overhead, the Miller-Thompson family gathered for one final group hug. Emily, Olivia, and Sophia at the center, surrounded by Jack, David, Susan, and Mike. "Happy birthday, my little wonders," Jack whispered. "We love you," David added. The girls, their eyes shining with happiness and that special magic only they possessed, answered in perfect sync, "We love you too, all of you." And so, beneath the summer night sky, a new chapter in their lives continued to unfold. A story of love, family, and the transformative power of open hearts. A story that promised many more adventures, laughter, and treasured moments in the years to come.